Hi, my name is Moritz Polter. I'm the producer of Labyrinth. Labyrinth is a book written by Kate Moss, which was a #1 bestseller. And we were approached by Scott Free, meaning Tandem Communications was approached by Scott Free to produce Labyrinth together with them. And we were only too happy to say yes to that. Labyrinth is a book that is based in 2 different time zones. It's a story of the 13th century, of the Cathars being eradicated by the Crusades, and B, it's a story that plays today of a young woman reliving some of those moments and finding herself drawn into that time without really knowing why, and trying to make sense of her visions that she has. And slowly but steadily, the 2 stories of the woman in the 13th century and the woman of today, Alais and Alice, get closer and closer together and intertwined. And in the end, you find out that actually it's a direct bloodline between the 2 of them, and that the reason why Alice has visions of Alais is because there is a direct link. And she's there to help protect the Grail. The Grail being not the Holy Grail of the Christian Church, but something that prolongs your life for hundreds of years, so you can bear witness to the atrocities, but also to the positive things that happened during those times. Scott Free US has worked with Tandem now on a number of projects, starting with The Company and then Pillars of the Earth and now World Without End. And so it was only logical that Scott Free UK would try the same route and work with Tandem. So Liza Marshall approached Tim Halkin at Tandem and asked whether we wanted to partner on that project. And given the scope of the book and the position it had in the market, we were happy to say yes, because we saw the potential and we thought, yes, that's a good partnership, and we can market Kate Moss, and we knew we were happy to go with Adrian Hodges as the writer of the script, and thought that that would definitely make a good project for us. As this is an original novel, we needed to find a writer that would do 2 things for us. A, streamline it and make sure that this very long book was going to fit into a 2-parter, into a mini-series of 2 times 90 minutes, as well as capturing an audience that wasn't just female but also male. And so we were looking for a television writer that could do this kind of work. And we found Adrian Hodges, who's an accomplished writer in his own right, and who was able to help us adapt the script. Chris Smith was a director that was on Scott Free's and Tandem's book for a while. We already looked at him for other projects that we produced separately and together. And therefore, when this new project came up, obviously he was considered again. And together with our commissioning network, we decided to go for him. I think that Chris is a very collaborative person in the respect of how to make the transition from screenplay to actual film, and how to get the story across correctly. He's very much in tune with his editor. He calls his editor every day and sees, what do we need, how did it work, can we do something, do we need an extra line, and all that kind of stuff, so that we are on every day. We know, did the scene work that we shot the day before. We chose South Africa as a shooting location because of 2 reasons. One is that the crews are very good here, and we can get set builds in a way that they don't feel like sets, and to a scale that will do this project justice and make it a big movie. And the same goes for historic costumes and prosthetics and doing the battle scenes. You have the manpower and the ability here to do these things. You also have that ability in other countries like Eastern Europe, Hungary, for instance, or the Czech Republic or Serbia, all of which would also have worked, and we actually budgeted the film in all of those countries, as well as here. And we were always going to do a split in terms of locations, going to Carcassonne for part of it, because obviously you can't replicate the whole of Carcassonne, and then going to a cheaper location, a location where you can do the set builds and where you can do the costumes and where you have the money to have lots of extras and horses and so on. And whether that would have been Serbia or Romania or South Africa was up in the air till very late in the day, when we knew when we had to shoot. And because of our shooting schedule and the timing of it, we needed to go to South Africa because of weather conditions. We couldn't have shot it in Europe unless we had shot it next year and postponed it by about 6 months. And we weren't able to postpone for 6 months because we needed to deliver. So South Africa was the choice because of that. In terms of, does it make sense to shoot a medieval film in South Africa where you have to rebuild everything from scratch because there are no medieval places here in comparison to Eastern Europe where you do find things like that? I think it does still make sense. It also changes slightly the way you look at the script and the way that you budget the script. You take into consideration that you won't just be able to go around the corner and find a street. You think, okay, so now we are building the street. Building the street is not necessarily more expensive than paying for an expensive location. It's also not necessarily more expensive because you can shoot more in a controlled environment than in an environment that you aren't controlling. Working in Carcassonne was a very nice experience in terms of working in the city. The people from Carcassonne, the tourist board and so on, were very helpful in making it possible for us to work in those locations and keeping the people at bay and letting us shoot in the cathedral and so on and so forth. At the same time, you can only shoot the contemporary side of Carcassonne in Carcassonne. Even though it is a medieval place and it looks medieval, as soon as you look at it in closer detail, you see that a lot of the things aren't from that time anymore. They have been changed slightly here and slightly there, and you would have to do a lot of touch-ups and change things in post in order to make them real medieval. Fairly early in the pre-production phase, pretty much right after we had decided on Chris Smith as a director, we went to Priscilla, John, our casting director in the UK, who we've worked with in the past, and we sat around a table, Liza Marshall, Karen Goddard, Kate Crow, Tim Halkin, Chris Smith, our director, and myself. And we tossed around ideas of who we wanted for the cast in general. And the first name, or maybe the second name, because we might have been talking about a different character first, but the first name that came up for Audric was John Hurt, and he was the first actor we went out to. And we were fortunate enough that he read it, he loved it, and he said yes. And that was great because it's a great cornerstone of the cast that we had very early on. Having someone like John Hurt on a project like this gives you the stamp of it being serious and it being real and it being big. And other cast members, especially the younger ones, if they hear John Hurt is attached, then they want to be part of the cast because he is such a memorable, mesmerizing actor. Kate Moss it was always good to have her around. I mean, she visited us in France, in Carcassonne, and there is such a positive and upbeat nature to her that that gets everyone even more excited about the project, because here comes the author, and the author is genuinely thrilled about the project and not at all anxious about how we treat the characters. She's very happy with the choice of actors we found for each of the characters. She sees them the way that we see them. There is a very close link between her and us, and we definitely hit the spot that she thought we were going to hit, which is great and fabulous. The one thing that the two of us discussed where she wasn't quite sure about was that we killed Sheila O'Donnell in our version, and she hasn't in her book. And in her sequel, Sheila will be alive. Now, in our version, Sheila is dead. We started out during production meetings always talking about how much blood we needed and how much blood we wanted. And Chris, coming from a background of horror films, obviously was very happy to use a lot of blood. And everything needs to be very visual. And when you talk to Chris about stabbing someone, then it's not someone getting stabbed once and the knife gets pulled out again, but it's in, a little bit of stabbing, and then out again. And if someone gets a throat cut, it's that kind of action rather than a clean cut. Now, as we do this film for a television audience and a family television audience, obviously the more gory you go, the less likely it is that you get your PG-12 or the rating right that you need to get. And so during pre-production, Chris and I were always discussing the line of how gory can we go, how bloody can we go, how much do we have to cut back. And my approach is always to let him go as far as he wants to, as long as I know that the coverage is there to make it less, so that when we present it to the board of censors, they can say, well, if you take this out or if you cut here, you're fine. I think that he came to realize that our main concern is, A, we don't want too much blood, and we don't have that much blood in this film. We don't have really a lot of blood rigs that explode and burst and splatter all over the place. And also, if you have violence, it has to be imminent, and it can't be out of joy. We are trying to have the same images. For instance, when we have a scene in an office with two lampshades, and it has been preceded by a scene in medieval time, we put two candles in it, so that we mirror those shots in a way. The same as we come from a shot in the past where we see some people walking, and we pan off and we see a car driving away. So we've got transition shots and we've got mirroring shots, and we do the same as with sound, where you still hear the sound of the medieval while the contemporary is already going, or the sound of the contemporary while the medieval is already going. So there's a lot of things informing each other. We shot a scene in a winery where Marissa Seal, played by Claudia Guerini, is having an occult meeting, and the whole scene is just purely lit by candles. And using the Alexa, we are able to shoot in a location where you have no light apart from candlelight, and you actually have enough light to light our actors. And it gets very moody, and it's beautifully shot. But it's also that is what the lighting concept is. You see the light source, and that's what makes the light. So if it's candles, you see, we try only to use candles. If it's a fireplace, you see, we try only to use the fireplace. Obviously, we do help a little bit here and there. We are making a film after all, but the light source should actually generate from within the room or within the situation we are in.